So, today we're going to talk about something that's, well, it's often invisible. It's that thin, fragile line between a difficult home life and what the world ends up calling juvenile delinquency. But we're not going to do it with a bunch of charts and theories. We're going to see it through the eyes of one young man.
Wow. That one sentence, it just hits you, right? It says so much. It speaks to this heavy, hidden weight that no kid should ever have to carry. So let's meet the young man at the heart of all this.
All right, let's dive into the story of Marcus. His story is really going to be our way in, our guide to understanding this whole thing. It's going to put a real human face on what can otherwise feel like just cold statistics and scary headlines. So, if you were to look at a file, Marcus's life would fit into this neat little box, a blended family. But what this slide shows you is the huge gap between that label and what he was actually living. His reality wasn't blended, it was just chaos. And what did that chaos actually look like, day to day? Well, his mom, she was there, but she wasn't, working nights, completely exhausted. And the person who filled that silence wasn't a source of support. It was her partner, Trey, who was just a constant source of criticism and punishment. So Marcus, he learned to become invisible, like a ghost in his own house. And maybe the hardest part, he learned how to hide the bruises, to try and protect his little brother from seeing what was really going on. School was supposed to be his one way out, his sanctuary, the one place he could just be a kid. But here's the thing, you can't just build a wall and leave that stuff at the door, right? The stress, it started to follow him. It seeped into his schoolwork, his grades started to drop, and pretty soon, he just stopped going altogether. That escape route he counted on, it was closing up fast. And then everything just boils over. A fight breaks out. But this is the most important part of the whole story. No one stopped to ask why. He was actually trying to protect another kid, someone who reminded him of his little brother. But no one saw that. All they saw was a stereotype. They didn't see the kid with a story. They just saw a statistic in the making. And here's the thing. As completely alone as Marcus must have felt in that moment, his story wasn't one of a kind, not even close. It was actually part of a much bigger pattern, a web of struggles that connected a lot of kids he knew. I mean, he could see little pieces of his own life everywhere he looked. There was his cousin, just bouncing around the foster care system, never really having a home. The girl next door who got arrested for skipping school. They treated it like a crime, not a cry for help. And then a classmate who ended up in juvenile detention because of something as simple as a probation violation. They all took different roads, but you have to wonder if they all started in a very similar place. And that's it. That's the heart of it. When you take a step back from the fight, the truancy, the missed curfew, when you pull on that one common thread, you find the same thing every time. These weren't just bad kids. They were kids from families that were in deep, deep crisis. Okay, so if family crisis is what ties this all together, how can we talk about it in a way that actually helps? There are ideas and terms that can help us go from just hearing a story to really understanding the mechanics of what went wrong. And this one is absolutely crucial: parental efficacy. Now, I know it sounds super academic, but the idea is actually really simple. It's all about balance. It's having both warmth, love, support, encouragement, and supervision, rules, boundaries, guidance. When a kid has both of those things, it acts like this powerful shield. It really can protect them. So let's take that idea and go right back to Marcus. Think about his story. Where was that balance for him? I mean, he definitely had supervision from Trey, but it was harsh, it was cold, and he might have felt love from his mom, but because she was so exhausted, the warmth and the active guidance just weren't there. And here's the heartbreaking answer. He couldn't think of a single time when the person correcting him was also the person supporting him. The two sides of that coin just never came together. That balance was completely gone. And without it, he was left totally unprotected. All right, so we've seen Marcus's story up close. Now we need to zoom all the way out. Because what he went through isn't just one story. It's a single reflection of a nationwide crisis. And the numbers, they are just staggering.
Just look at this number for a second. 600,000. Let that really sink in.
That's what this is. 600,000 confirmed cases of child abuse and neglect in one single year. It's a number so huge it's almost impossible to get your head around the human cost. But we have to try. Every single digit in that number is a child, a story, a kid a lot like Marcus.
And that is exactly why we have to bring it back to the person. Because a statistic can show you the scale of a problem, but it can never tell you about the secrets a 15-year-old is forced to keep, or the real reason why he threw a punch in a school cafeteria. For that, you need the human story.
And that brings us to the final part of our explainer today. Because this story doesn't end with chaos and statistics. After living through it all and finally learning the words to describe it, something amazing began to happen. Marcus started to find his own voice. This is how it happened. This was his path. First, he just had to survive. Step 1. Then, step 2, he was given the language, these ideas like parental efficacy, to finally understand what he survived. And that unlocked the most powerful step of all. He stopped being just a character in someone else's messy story, and he started to become the author of his own. So we're going to leave you with this thought. The next time you see a headline or a shocking statistic about juvenile crime, maybe just pause for a second. Think of Marcus and ask yourself this one simple question. Because behind every number, there are hundreds of thousands of stories just waiting for someone to understand.